Hey everyone, we're going to start video number 4 now that we have all our basic shapes in place and we have our score lines in place. It's time to miter our pocket corners and taper any full-length flaps. So once again, we want to open our file. I've been doing a lot of work on other things, so let me do it this way. Okay, so when we left off, we had colored in our chipboard pieces and we had created our score lines and our black boxes that we're going to use for matting in a few more steps. And now we need to talk about mitering and tapering. Mitering is when you cut an angle, like let's zoom in on this pocket here, to cut out bulk. You would take your scissors normally and cut this corner off. And sometimes when you have to do that by hand, your flaps will bang into each other. You have to trim one side up, or when you close them, you might have a bit of a gap. And doing it on the machine will allow you to have a perfect miter. Tapering, on the other hand, is when you cut a small, just a tiny little sliver off of corners whenever you have like a full-length flap attaching the complete height or complete width of the piece you're attaching it to. And the reason you do that is to remove bulk in the corner of your mini album, and also when you mat, you don't get these funny little lines. It kind of, if you will, tucks that attachment underneath your pattern paper. Again, like the score lines, I don't usually create my tapers, but again, I'm going to show you how to create the tapers so that I teach you everything you can do, and then you can choose what you don't want to do. I always miter my pockets before cutting, but usually I taper by hand just because I like to do my tapering it's easy to do, and I want to, when I put tape on, it's just easier to put tape end to end and not have it overhang and then have to cut my tape. So I just find it's easier to tape without it. So let's just zoom out, talk for a second. We have piece C. Again, if you look at the cutting information, what I did should be in your notes. C is a base piece, so we don't need to do anything there. D is a flap, and so what we want to do, if we were going to taper, you just cut a very small piece off here. However, you don't want to cut into your score line, and you want to cut a little bit away from your score line. So I'm going to double click on this, and oops, remember how I had us group everything? You'll notice when I double click, I'm not able to get the points for point editing. And the reason is because I grouped this with my score line, that blue line. So first we're going to have to ungroup, which is Command-Shift-G, and that ungroups it. Honestly, I don't usually group my stuff. I thought it would be easier. Lesson learned. Now I want to pick up my red line, because that's what my machine's going to cut, and double click. Okay? And just like we'd expect, we get the 4 corners. Now, to taper a corner, let's zoom in up at this corner. What I like to do is I like to come out just a little bit from where my fold is going to be, and I add a point. Okay, and how do you add a point? You move your cursor up to that line until you get your mouse to look like that little line with an arrow, and once you have it, you click, and see how I added a point? Whoops, see how I added a point? That's going to act as an anchor, and then I can click on this one. I hold my shift key down and I move. It doesn't have to be much. I hold my shift. The reason I'm holding my shift key down is you can hit the button lots of times, but instead of that, I like to, if I hold my shift key down, and hit my down arrow, I get like big chunks. You see? Then I'm going to come down here, place a new point just a little bit before my score line, take this, hold my shift, and move my arrow key up. Okay? Now you'll notice when I zoom out, I have tapered that piece. And when you take this piece, and what you're going to do is you will eventually be gluing it onto this piece. See how you get that nice tapered edge? Let me zoom in. Okay. You get a nice tapered look. Okay. It's subtle. In fact, I might even make that a little deeper. We'll do that on the rest of the pieces. So let me back up a few steps here. Put everything back the way it was. Okay, now let's go to piece E. It has to be tapered. So again, you double click, and the double click doesn't work, so we have to ungroup. Again, Command or Control, Shift and G, or if you want to, you can come up here. Do you see this is grayed out? That's where you group. And here you can ungroup, so you can also click up there. And it ungroups everything. I click off to the side to clear. And then I'm going to double click on my red box. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And this black square here and the other score line that's under there is actually where we're going to mat. But this piece has a gusset. So we want our taping to start before the gusset. Then we're going to click here. And everybody has different opinions on how far you want to taper. I'll go ahead and do 4 clicks down this time. Again, we're going to create here a point that is before where I'm going to fold. Then I'm going to take the end point and move it up. Okay? So we've tapered those 2 pieces. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this one and go ahead and move it down instead of doing, whoops, let's zoom in so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down 2 more. And let's take this one 2 more. That'll make my tapers kind of more the same. Okay? And if we zoom way in, you'll notice again we have a little bit of space. It's really important because if you go right to that score line, it can look funny in that corner. You don't want to do that. That's just bad construction. So, we've tapered those 2 pieces. We will come back to these pockets in a minute. We have this flap. We need to taper this flap as well. So let's zoom in. You guys should know exactly what you're doing by now. We're going to ungroup and then double click on the red. I'm going to zoom in a little more. You create your starting point on where you want it to start to angle. And then you grab this point and we're going to move it in. And then we're going to add a point here and then select the point up above and bring it in. Alright, so now we have our tapers. Alright, easy peasy, right? Now let's put our miters. Okay? Well, let's talk about something else. Some people like to taper the very tip of their pocket here. I don't because I cover mine with pattern paper and I don't ever see that there's a need, but you would do the exact same thing. You would just come in here, put your starting point here, then select the far point and drag it down a little bit. Okay? Let's talk about mitering. We're now going to talk about mitering. We want to get the perfect angle here so that when our flaps fold up, they make a perfect seam. That's really easy. Almost all of my books and things I do have and most designers have a 1/2 inch gusset, or not gusset, excuse me, fold over on each side of a pocket. If it's a 1/2 inch fold, a 1 inch line that runs from this here to here at the proper angle will give you exactly what you need. Oh, and if you're like me, the very first time I was like, oh my gosh, how do I figure out the angle, the length, and all of that? It's really, really easy. Come up here and just draw yourself a little square. Okay? And again, I don't really care about the size because we're going to come over here to our transform panel. You should be familiar with this. And we're going to create a size, and we're going to make this square 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay? That's how I'm going to get a perfect length. Now I need the perfect angle. I need it to run from corner to corner, and that angle would be a line across this 1 inch square. Okay? I'll show you what I'm talking about. We're going to bring this up here, and you'll notice if you run from this corner to this corner, you're going to get the exact miter you want. So putting a square up there is not going to help me. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to double click. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to select this point. I'm going to break that path. It doesn't really matter what corner you do. I'm going to separate it. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to leave half of my square in place. Then all I'm going to do is take that middle point out. Now I have that perfect angle. Okay? That works great for the left side. What am I going to do on the right side? I'm going to do a copy and a paste right on top. Okay? And if you remember from the last video, that's Command or copy. Command on a Mac or Control on a PC. And then a C for copy, and then Command or Control, and then F for pasting right on top. Then, with that top one selected, I'm going to hit Object, Mirror, and I'm going to flip it horizontally, and you're going to get an X. Okay? Now I know I have another pocket, and instead of recreating that, I'm going to make a copy and set it off to the side. How did I make a copy? Sorry about that. I selected both pieces and I hit Command or Control C and then Command and Control V. And that just is a copy and then a paste. So I'm going to use one at this pocket and I'm going to use one at the next pocket. So we're going to take this, bring this up here, and now I've got to get it perfectly aligned in this corner. So I'm going to pick this line here, and I'm going to pick my big red square. I'm going to go into my transform, and I'm going to align it first against the right side of my rectangle, and then down at the bottom. Okay? Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick this and this. So I've got my big rectangle and this, and I'm telling it to take that line and align it perfectly with the left side and then bring it all the way down to the bottom. Okay? And if you zoom in, you have a cut line that'll cut from there to there. Okay? But I really don't want to cut this whole square out and then have it cut here, and then I've got to make sure I overlap all of that. So I am now going to select my square, hold down my Shift key so I can select multiple items, select that angle line, select this angle line, and then I'm going to make it a compound path. And the way I do that is holding down Command and E or Control and E, or if you don't want to do it that way, you can also, right click and there's Make Compound Path. Okay? Another way you can make a compound path is to, I'm just checking something here. Okay. You're going to select your rectangle, that's your pocket, your two angled sides, and you can hit up here, Object, Make Compound Path. And you'll notice right here it's Command or Control E. So that's all the different ways you can do it. The reason I'm making a compound path, what that does is that makes the software, instead of seeing a line on the left, a line on the right, and your rectangle, it's going to treat it all as one object. And I want to do that because when I double click on this, all of those points show up. So I want to break this corner, break the path, pick this corner, and I'm going to drag it and connect it. Drag it and connect it, and then come over to this corner, break the path, drag and connect, drag and connect. And you'll notice when I'm done connecting, oops, I added a point. When I'm done connecting, all you get are all black points. And now it's going to cut out that shape. You're going to score right along that line. And when you score along those 3 lines, you're going to get a perfect pocket with a perfect mitered corner. Okay? If we zoom up here, messing around, you'll notice all my lines kind of got out of balance. If that happens to you, don't worry about it. Just select everything. Go into your Align tool. You want to align everything in the center, and then you want to align everything at the top. Now all my pieces are realigned. All right, let's go make our other pocket. Let's bring that X over here to my other pocket. We're going to do the exact same thing we did. We're going to grab that left line. We're going to grab the left side of our rectangle. We're going to align it to the left, and then we're going to align it to the bottom. Let's do that again. On the right-hand side, you're going to grab your right line, the right side of your rectangle, and you're going to go to the right, and you're going to go down. Then you're going to make sure you select all 3 of those objects. You're going to create a compound path. Now it's all one shape. Double click, break the path in this corner, connect your 2 points, break the path in this corner, the 2 points. Now let's zoom out and see what we have. Okay, now we have created our tapered ends on all of our flaps, and we have the mitered corners on our 2 pockets. So I'm going to save my file, and I will see you all in the next video.